So on April 18th, a little over a month ago, a father and son named Richard and John Ryan were walking along the riverbank of the Cuyahoga River. They were searching for an old fishing spot, and they came across a stone right by the riverbank that seemed to be a little out of place, a little odd. And when they got to actually looking hard at the stone, they realized that they were looking at a headstone. Headstones by the bank of the Cuyahoga River, not very common. And when they began to wipe away the moss, they realized that they had found something of significant historical importance. The stone measured 24 inches by 15 inches by 6 inches and had a cross carved at the top. They realized at that point that they had to get a hold of somebody, so they called a member of the Cuyahoga Falls Historical Society, who explained that the city was founded in 1812. When they really got down to looking at the stone itself, they realized that this was pre-1812. What they found exactly was a stone inscribed with the name Thadius Peck. It was also carved in 1711 to 1781. The significance of that is, first of all, what is a gravestone from that time period doing down by the river? Secondly, that predates the Western Reserve. So for those of you who don't know, before Ohio was a territory or a state, Connecticut had reserved a portion of the land in northeast Ohio, and they called it the Connecticut Western Reserve. And there was a big migration of people from the state of Connecticut into Ohio to settle Ohio. What happened was the land was reserved by the state of Connecticut. People in Connecticut could then pay the state of Connecticut for the rights to come to Ohio and settle the land. So this stone predates the Connecticut Western Reserve, as it was called at that point. The Western Reserve began around 1796, and this stone again had a dates of 1711 to 1781, so it predated the Western Reserve, so the area wasn't even settled yet. So the question becomes, who the heck is Thadius Peck? Why was his 200-pound gravestone found right next to the Cuyahoga River? We're talking right next to the river. It wasn't the most ornately carved thing. It was carved by hand, obviously. Who carved it? Obviously, it wasn't Thadius Peck. I mean, we are talking about 5 years after the Declaration of Independence is signed that this stone is in Ohio. That's a lot for somebody to wrap their head around. So anyway, what happened was the Ryans phoned the Cuyahoga Falls Historical Society, who then got in touch with a couple people. They got in touch with City Hall to let them know what was going on. They got in touch with the Army Corps of Engineers. They also reached out to the University of Akron to get help from a couple people in their historical preservation department that they have. So they've got a lot of people on board. I'm just going to read this to you so you can kind of have an understanding of what's happening. They enlisted the help of Mabe Marino, who is an historical archaeologist for Stewards of Historical Preservation, and Dr. John A. Peck, interestingly enough, the same last name, from the Department of Geosciences to study the stone. The city was contacted to extract the stone safely. The city contacted the Army Corps of Engineers to make sure that there were no permissions necessary to remove the stone. And the Army Corps said, no, you're good to go. There have been people on social media around the area who have been asking, well, what about the body? Are you sure you want to take the stone away from the grave? We are hearing that bedrock is only a few inches away from the layer that the stone was laying on. So people are very certain that there is no grave there. And if that's the case, what the heck is the stone doing there? Though it's currently unknown at this time how the gravestone came to be embedded in the riverbank of the river, cemetery preservationist Krista Horrocks from the Ohio Historical Preservation Office is being consulted as the Falls Historical Society works to reach the history of Thadius Peck. We don't know who this guy is. Peck in the city of Cuyahoga Falls is a well-known name. Sherman Peck was the city's first marshal. Julius Peck owned a large piece of land downriver by the gorge. So it's entirely possible that these people were related to Thadius Peck, although that's unclear, and I'm not really sure how they're going to get any information that's going to lead them to a definitive answer one way or another. But it's just really, really odd that you're going to find a 200-pound headstone with dates that predate any kind of settlement in this area. It's mind-boggling, as it were. So, and by the way, a quick shout out and thank you to the Cuyahoga Falls Fire Department. They were called and inspected the stone themselves, and they were the ones who came up with the strategy to extricate the stone. They did so safely. 200 pounds, big guys, no problem. They transported it safely to the Falls Historical Society, where it's now in their possession. But I just wanted to real quick say thank you to the Cuyahoga Falls Fire Department for being so awesome and taking care of that. I just wanted to get on here real quick and let you know that this is a real happening thing. There's a lot of people involved in it. I've got some pictures that I'm throwing up here that you're seeing. A lot of them are courtesy of the Cuyahoga Falls Historical Society. Hopefully we'll have some resolution here at some point in time to let everybody know who Thadius Peck was, why he was here, why was his headstone where it was, where is Thadius Peck buried. A lot of that, boy, it's going to be tough for anybody to definitively say one way or another, and I don't really know that there's going to be a resolution anytime soon. I don't know how there could be. Genealogy is difficult enough when you have the proper paperwork, but when all you have to go on is a 200-pound headstone with carved symbols and names and dates on it that don't have any ties to the area whatsoever, when you're talking about the date or dates that are inscribed there, that's going to be a very difficult thing for anybody to piece together. So I guess we're going to see. And we tend to think of history happening in the past, which that's when it happens, obviously, but history can also take place in the present. Not only are we talking about the past life of Thadius Peck and what events may have occurred that brought the stone and had it settle where it was, but we're also talking about a historical event of the actual finding of the gravestone. That date will go down in history as the day that that father and son duo found that gravestone and started the ball rolling down the hill, as it were, of how we are going to figure out who Thadius Peck was and why his headstone ended up where it ended. I have a couple ideas and thoughts myself. I haven't heard anybody talk about it online or in social media or anything like that. I'm sure that there's a lot of people who are much smarter than I am who have a real good grasp of the situation and have probably put a lot of these thoughts to rest, or at least thought of them themselves. If we are talking about the Western Reserve and it being settled, does it make sense that people coming to the area way back then would have exhumed a body and brought a headstone so that they could bury a loved one, rebury a loved one in a new land, or take them with them and, you know, have a place to visit them and not leave them hundreds of miles away to never be visited again? I'm sure it's possible. I guess anything's possible. Whether it's probable or not, I guess we'll find out. The other thing is, I'm sure that's not where they intended it to be. Why did it end up there? Is it was there an accident? You know, and on this channel we've talked about accidents that happen down by the river. If you look back at the video that we made a while ago about the horrors at the high bridge, you know, that's relatively, that high bridge is, well, it's roughly a mile downstream from where this headstone was found. So there's certainly a lot of history that happens along that river. Is it possible that when the settlers were bringing the headstone with them, that an accident happened and they fell into the river and became another tragedy of the Cuyahoga River, and that the headstone just landed where it landed and remained there for hundreds of years? I would imagine that is possible. So I don't know how the experts are going to find out who Thadius Peck is and why his headstone ended up where it was. Certainly going to be a lot of speculation towards that. But I wanted to stop in real quick and say hi and let all of you know of a historical event that happened very recently. If you are in the Akron, Cuyahoga Falls area on June 12th, 2022, you can stop by the Cuyahoga Falls Historical Society from 2 to 4 p.m. on the 12th to see the gravestone for yourself. Hopefully they'll have the stone cleaned up the right way and on display, looking real good for you, and maybe I'll see you there. You never can tell. Okay, just wanted to take a minute, say hello, and let you all know of a historical event that just recently happened in your timeline. I look forward to hearing from you. All right, that's it for me. All the things I usually say at the end of these videos: like, subscribe, leave a comment, and I'll see you in the next episode as we explore more curious history. Take care.